Hello and welcome to Genealogy Quick Start. How are you today? I'm Shamele Jordan, your host. We have two wonderful quick starts for you today, which I will tell you about in a second. But first, I want to share with you a couple of tips. And one is that I have been blessed to get a chance to go to, and I think they call it a operetta or a oratorio, and it's coming across the country, so you should check it out whenever you can. It's called Sanctuary Road, and it is a mini opera where they are not, moving around the stage. They kind of stand up front. They have like five singers or something, and they are singing about Sanctuary Road, which is the Underground Railroad by William Still. And so they picked out specific narratives that come from this book. So if you don't know about William Still, let me just tell you about William Still, the Underground Railroad in this book. Number one, William Still was a conductor on the Underground Railroad. And when fugitive or freedom seekers were on their way north to freedom to Canada, they would stop by his place and he would collect their stories, their names, their ages, their family members, why they were actually were there specific reasons why they were leaving, family members' names, who their enslavers were, where they were coming from, maybe their occupation. So much information, and he captured it in this book. They said that he would bury it regularly every of Pennsylvania. I went black. It is a great source for looking for ancestors who might have been on the Underground Railroad, as well as they might have ended up in St. Catharines in Canada, where many of them went to. So realize that there are many books out there that are perfect for genealogy, but they might be in a historical context. And there are so many ways that you can get intimate with history, such as an oratorio. Fancy word for a mini opera. All right, so what do we have going on here today at Genealogy Quick Start? Well, Jim and Michael are all up in Grandpa's business, okay? They are asking, what did Grandpa own when? So they're going to share information on understanding how to get in touch with your ancestors' property, inheritances, and other things. And then me, guess what? We have an extra special guest today. It's me. And I am going to talk about something that really it helped me in my early days of genealogy to just be very exhaustive in my searches wherever I'm looking for people. And today we're going to talk about like one of the funnest, the deepest areas to research is the county. You got to go to the county. All right. So without further ado, let me bring on my super quick starters and buddies, columnist and editor, James M. Beidler. Hello, Jim.
Hello there.
Genealogy tip of the day, Michael John Neal. Hello.
Greetings.
How are you? So, genealogy, when you think about records and when you're being exhaustive, you have to like look at different jurisdictional levels. Would you call that like county and federal, town? Would those be considered? Yeah. So, did you guys see the question that I had about counties today? Maybe. Yes. No.
Why don't you share it with our audience first,
Oh, yeah. Let's see what the audience says.
and then
Okay.
maybe we'll have some enlightenment.
So I had asked Jim and Michael if they could share like a fun county experience or you know this you must do when you go to the county type of experience. I know I had fun at the county when I realized, and I knew this before I went because I was prepared, but I didn't know it was going to be like this. My county had two courthouses with records, 20 minute drive apart. But I was down south and I just love driving like 90 miles an hour down these like long, no, I did I say 90? I mean driving faster than I normally would at home because there were no cops. But yeah, and they were really cool and helped me to understand that, what was at each one. So did you guys have any experiences at the county, not necessarily driving from courthouse to courthouse, but did you
I,
have
I
any fun?
I'd like to know if you had any experiences with court records after you had been driving at that speed. Um, Maybe you had some firsthand knowledge of modern record keeping practices.
Well, my favorite county story was when I was commissioned by another genealogist who needed a county level naturalization record. And in my first attempt, I encountered the buzzsaw of a clerk in the prothonotari's office who she had this stapling or binding machine that she loved to be making a lot of noise. and as I'm researching the microfilms, every so often I hear one of these. And the upshot was she thought she was very powerful in this office. And when I'm asking for this to be certified, we can't certify naturalization records. She gives this, had a real big mouth on her. And of course, I am not wanting to screw up anything, for this genealogist I'm working with. So okay. So I took my photocopies, left, and reported in. And she's like, but hey, this has to be certified. And for the purposes her client was going to use it for. So she didn't let this lay. She got in contact with the president judge of the county. and I'm not sure if this is really every county in Pennsylvania, but in this particular county, the president judge, she was the highest living authority.
Okay.
And so I head up to this courthouse again and go to the president judge's office, and she escorts me down to the prothonotary office, and she's getting hello Madam Judge, all the way down. She gets to the prothonotary office. Now that clerk, of course, was not in this day, and that might have been purposeful.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Darn! I thought you were talking to her.
Yeah, but the prothonotary herself comes. Oh yes, Madam President, what can we do for you? And so I got the naturalization certified. Was the upshot.
I love that story. I love that story. Michael, have you had any celebrities come down and help you to get what you needed in the
Celebrities come down? I know where I'm from, there are no such thing as celebrities. No, I had one. I'll tell you the short version of this. Years ago, I was 16 years old, so it's been a minute since this happened. I was using the land records in the back of the courthouse. The couple across the table was having an issue finding something, and I said, we're using an index. I said, can I help you? You have a question? And the wife, I forget which one. No, we're fine. We don't need your help. Whatever. So a minute later, her husband, who I think was helping her, got sent out to ask somebody a question. The lady comes in the office, back in the vault to help, and she can't understand it. And keep in mind, the lady was my second grade Sunday school teacher. And she said, Michael, do you have a minute? I can't figure this out. And so I went over and I in a slightly snarky voice said, "Well, those three letters stand for Chancery, and that means it's a court case in a court volume in the other office." I wanted to say if you'd asked me 10 minutes ago, I could have told you and I would have given you a lot more help, but you decided I couldn't possibly know anything, so
Not you.
uh, whatever.
Not
So
you, Michael.
I was I was
Genealogy prodigy.
I was polite. I was polite. I was polite.
So when we get to my quick start, I will tell you my absolute favorite courthouse story, and it deals with the basement. All right. So you guys know what to do. Thank you so much for being here. We want to know where you are and which genealogy groups you are representing. I think we do have a courthouse story here in the comments. Let's see if I can read this. My faves for courthouse research have let them look at my records. Oh, looking at the records myself. Yeah, you get into more trouble that way, definitely. And probate records in one county are not pleased with me that I had several records to look up. Oh, they told me to come back later in the day to look up the records. What? Not pleased when I said that I lived 2 hours away and they went to get the records. How dare they tell you you're looking up too many records? Have you guys had that before? The gall on that lady. So,
I'll
mhm.
say this and then we'll get started. I remember when I first started, you could still smoke back in the vault of the courthouse. And with all that
You're
old
a
paper,
child. You're a child. That's right.
I wasn't, I mean, I was old enough to drive almost, but I
Oh,
could remember.
okay.
And I thought, my gosh, it's lucky those records still exist because there was a chain smoker, title researcher who was always in there. And it was just, yeah, I just, yeah,
That's gross. That is totally
lucky things
gross.
didn't burn down.
Totally gross. So we have Wanda Looney. How are you, Wanda from Birmingham? Hello, Paula. Look at my faves. I haven't seen you guys in so much time. Love digging around in the courthouses. Yes, they're the absolute best. Hello, LaJoy, representing. Oh, LaJoy. This is our special guest alum. How are you, LaJoy? Representing today, well, the full OGS thing going on there. Also, Central Maryland OGS. Thank you so much. And of course, Valerie Ann. How are you? Valerie Ann, did you know that we're going to be together 3 nights in a row? Representing Philly area and GSP love deeds and county court records. The coolest thing about deeds and county court records, besides the fact that you are going to talk about them, is the every name search at they're coming up on familysearch.org beta. So
And
what
that's what I used to find the deeds that I posted as part of my.
very cool. We're gonna get
Yeah,
more deeper in
yeah.
that. I love it. I love it more deeper. Come on, Shamele. All right. This is your quick start called What Did Grandpa Own When? So why are you guys getting in Grandpa's business? What is this quick start about?
Well, when we track all the deeds and what property was still owned and what parcels have been sold off, we can it allows us to find out some details often that are not stated in the deeds because deeds are one of those records. They're not concerned with leaving genealogical details.
Right.
It's about transfer of property and that's it. And so many times there are clues that we wish were told in deeds that are not. One way to get some of those clues out of there is to map the properties and see what's left and make sure we have all those documents and have all those clues ferreted out.
You got me with mapping properties. All right, let's get started with this quick start. What did Grandpa own when? So, step one is to obtain all property deeds. So, what's the best way to do this, Michael? Or Jim?
Well,
Sorry. Why did
you're
I
going to
say
have to
that?
go through, I don't know. Um, Freudian slip there, I guess. What you're going to have to do is go through the grantor and grantee indexes. The grantor is the sell or the grantee is the purchaser, whoever's acquiring the property. And make certain you found all the references for the individual for whom you're looking. You want to keep in mind that deeds are indexed as they are recorded, and they are recorded as they're brought to the courthouse for recording. And that might not be immediately after the deed was drawn up and executed. So you'll want to cover a while after that person had died, just to make sure you've gotten everything. And one of the reasons for doing some of the things that we're going to talk about is to make certain that you've not overlooked a document when we go through and analyze the parcels.
Anything to add, Tim?
Yeah, because a lot of times, even though we might think our ancestors were sedentary as far as their residence, they still may have moved around or been involved in transactions. When we get to my example of my fifth great grandfather, Conrad Beidler, in addition to the deeds I highlight, he had a bunch of other property transactions and also other things that made their way into the deeds, like a sale of timber, a sale of water rights. So some interesting things.
Very interesting. And I had the opportunity to do that, obtaining these property deeds. So I just kind of put them in like a spreadsheet. Is that how you kind of deal with your deeds? All right. All right. So we are getting where are we getting them from? Did we say where we're going to get them from? Online, the best place to go.
It's really going to depend. You can look and see if Family Search has them. Some of those you may be able to access at home. Some you may have to be at a Family Search affiliate site to do that. Others you're going to have to go to the actual courthouse office that originally held them because they have not been microfilmed or digitized.
Although that's fewer and fewer instances, because again, not because genealogists or them trying to help us, but because property has so many legal uses, title searchers, people like that has spurred, in many cases, the deeds were the first ones to be digitized and put online. I know a lot of counties in Pennsylvania, they have some sort of for pay service that you have to go through, but they are digitized.
Even the old ones.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Seeing a lot of, once you get, there's a world outside of Pennsylvania, and when you go further west, that's not always the case in a lot of places. You're going to have to, if Family Search doesn't have them, you may find some indexes, but to get the originals, you're going to have to you can reach out to the recorder's office via email or phone sometimes too if they're not online.
Yeah, well, it's the important state, Pennsylvania, as opposed to all those vowel states in the Midwest. So.
Okay, Shamele, what is step number 2? I think we got a step number 2. Which is a really good, based on what Jim was saying, number 2 is a real good segue here, I think.
All right, so on to step 2, which is to total amounts bought and sold. So how do you do this? I'm really interested in that because I've never thought of taking it as, a full, trying to figure out if I'm missing, like, why do you do this in the first place?
And when we say amounts, we're primarily thinking of amounts of land.
Exactly.
Acreage,
exactly.
And purchase. Yeah. Because as we're saying, frequently people would cut off parts of property and only sell part of it, and so that makes it pretty complicated.
But one of the reasons for doing that is it's like we're going to talk about in the examples, you've not left anything out. All the deeds, the total from the deeds of acquisition should be fairly close to the deeds of dispersion. They might not match 100%, especially in states where they use meets and bounds and things like that, but they should, because especially in the older ones, they're not going to come out on the nose, but they should be fairly close in total. If you're missing 20 acres, that's not a surveying error. That's something you haven't found.
Yep.
Okay, so you're going to look for your ancestor as both a grantee and a grantor. And you total up the value of the property. And if
the acreage
sizes,
because that changes over time.
Size matters in this case.
Yes. Yeah. Size matters. Okay, moving on to step number 3. Thank you. You're hysterical. Step number 3. locate additional sales or inheritances. So if you don't see them, you have everything that you found in grantee grantor and the amounts don't match, where else would you look for sales or inheritances?
Yeah, well, they may have been sold through the probate process, so there may be whatever the probate court is in Pennsylvania. It's the orphans court. We also have these animals in some counties called miscellaneous deeds, and that's a real
Love
grab bag.
miscellaneous.
Real grab bag of things, including a lot of times sales out of an estate, and then you have all the heirs having to sign off on that miscellaneous deed.
And in some places, if the property is transferred via a will, the will serves as the deed, and there is no actual deed
Yes.
either. So you might
Yeah.
Really? Can you say that again? Because that really helps. Did you just say the will serves as the deed?
Today, that would not be done. There would be a perfunctory deed just to keep the title and the lawyer people happy. But if we're talking before 1900, and if the will gave the title to a son or whomever, the will serves. I've got it from in my background where there's been no deed from 1869 when the first person in the family bought it. All the other transfers, there have been 3 of them, have been when someone died. It was in the will. There are no deeds after 1869. The will serve as the deed for that property in that case.
Understood. We actually had another episode where we talked about that. And a person went to get his ancestral property and he got a deed from 1826, I believe. So I get it now. All right. It happens. All right. So we know where to find all these different records for different sales and inheritances, court records, wills and wills. I love this. All right. We're going to show you some stuff. Let's get through to the next step, which is step 4, which is to map properties. How do you do that?
Well, you learn how to draw a deed. That's one thing. There now are software programs that do it, but I recommend getting a compass and a protractor, and learning the old-fashioned way, at least enough that then all those different type of boundaries make sense to you. The angles of the boundaries.
We have a question here about does a will as deed vary from county to county, or is that just a standard?
That's probably from one state to another, because some of these details really come from state statute, and some of the practices come from state statute.
Yeah, and as you were noting earlier, Michael, it's really that now nobody would let the transfer go unrecorded without an extra deed, whereas you go back before 1900, a lot of times they didn't do that.
Right. Today there would be an executor's deed or an administrator's deed.
Yep.
Just pro forma, so there was a document.
Yep.
Fantastic. Wonderful question. Thank you. So you talked about mapping it. So really, there's many ways to do that.
There's software that you can use if you don't want to. I mean, I'm not opposed to math and angles. If you know my background, I can't be opposed to math and all that geometry stuff. But it's okay if you want to use the software to do it. It's less intimidating than to map it out the old-fashioned way with your compass and your protractor and your straight edge. The main thing is that you do map them out so you understand what their sizes are, what their shapes are, and their relative positions to other pieces of property. If you're in federal land states,
that's going to be a whole different quick start.
That is,
it is a whole different. And the
institute,
yes. And the institute, I would check out all the genealogy institutes. There is at least one that I know of that has a mapping course that you do this. You do hands-on and you learn how to do it in addition to software. So check out. That's one thing that would be very beneficial to go to an institute for a week to learn. You wouldn't get bored in there. Well, maybe you would. I don't know. All right, we're mapping that property. Let's move on to, and of course, the last step is to, what is this? Fertilize, plant, and harvest. I hadn't. What does this mean?
We
It's
got to
genealogically speaking.
we got
Better
to
than
rinse and
wash, rinse,
repeat.
and repeat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at these records. Oh, I love the Beidler house.
Yeah, this is the Miller's house built by my fifth great grandfather, Conrad Beidler. And this quick start kind of made me want to get back into documenting all his land purchases and sales, because there are actually two houses still standing today that he built. This was the first one that he built in the 1780s, and then very soon after he built it, he sold it to his older son. And if we go to the next slide, this shows the deed chain that I was putting together. Conrad, he built the house, but he wasn't the first owner of the property. The property had some sort of smaller house on, and small mills and so forth. But then if we go through these and the next one, and then go on to the next one, then we have the deed where he sold it to his older son. And if we go to the close-up, it's 1,500 pounds, 1,500 pounds, Pennsylvania pounds. This is in the 1780s. Pennsylvania continued to use a pound as a currency into the early 1800s. And it's interesting, he doesn't give this to his older son. He sells it to him. Now, what was 1,500 was a quite substantial sum. I don't know if it was actually market value or not, because it was quite a developed property with a mill, with a tavern, and quite a few things to it. So this is how he treated his older son and disposed of his main property. But around the same time, he's buying another property a few miles away, and keeps that until the 1790s. And if we go on to the next slide, this one is 1790s, and it's between Conrad and his younger son, Peter. And it identifies him as a son, so we're sure of that. And then has what I consider a beautiful passage.
The writing itself is just, I can't even hear you, because I'm just like, this writing is absolutely amazingly gorgeous.
But in the bottom part, he says about for the natural love and affection which Conrad and his wife Barbara bear for their son Peter, and for better advancement of him in the world, and further consideration of 5 shillings, a token sum. You had to put some sort of sum in for it to be a legal deed and contract. And what this shows is that Peter, then they stayed on this property, being cared for by Peter, which was the traditional German youngest son's role. Really nice family. And so then when Conrad, he makes a will, but it's all personal property then when he dies in 1800, because his real estate he has disposed of over time.
Thank you, Jim. I love those.
We're gonna switch gears and move to Ohio. These are 4
the other great state.
It is. That's what they say. Anyway, there's 4 deeds. This is a table I made to kind of summarize the essence of them when I was analyzing these. So this is a 100-acre piece of property, which I've called the 100-acre wood, just to be kind of silly with that. He buys it in 1822. There are 3 subsequent deeds that are shown here. And then what I did in this case, because there's one more deed after that I thought was after Abraham and Catherine died. So if you just start going through the next slides, that was my rectangle for the 100-acre parcel. I should have put some trees on that to make it the 100-acre wood. But then if we just kind of slowly go through, that was after there was one sale. And at that point, there was 37 and a half, the west part. There was the east part of that, 62 and a half.
Mm.
And then if we go to the next slide, what has happened is
Mm.
Mullen, when we go through the records, Mullen mortgaged the property and apparently didn't pay it off, and it went back to Abraham. And
Mm.
so Abraham is selling 25 acres to William. He still owns 12 and a quarter. And then there's this follow-up deed with a lovely 1/4 of an acre, if I remember right. If we do the next one.
Patty said that's what happens when you're watching grandkids, 100-acre wood.
I saw that. That's good. That's good. I'm not sure, 1/4 of an acre was sold. I'm not sure exactly why that happened. I would guess it was maybe to clear up a property line. Smith might have been a neighbor, and there might have been a property line issue, and so they had a deed to kind of clear that up. I doubt if they were making a housing development there in the 1820s. But then what happened is Abraham dies. There's no more deeds from Abraham. There's no probate for Abraham. But there are 3 deeds from women I thought were his daughters about 15 years later for 11 and a half acres in the northwest quarter of this 100-acre lot. It's a half an acre off from what the property would have been. But again, these deeds are taking place over 50 or so years. The resurvey or the replatting of it might have indicated a slightly different acreage. But then I knew what that deed was for the 11 and a half acres. It's what Abraham still owned when he died. But drawing these out, this is a nice example. I like to use it because you don't need software for this. It's a rectangle. They're just nice rectangles. We can plat it out, easily draw it out, and easily see it.
Well, you're in rectangle land, but I get what you're saying.
We're in rectangle land, but there's places in the Midwest where we don't have rectangles.
Okay.
But this is rectangle land, and so that made it a little easier for an illustration.
No, I love it. Is that the last one?
That is the last one.
Oh, okay, cool.
I did put a big circle for Smith's 1/4 of an acre. I didn't feel like drawing the square, but otherwise,
I love it. So that was the quick start for, where is it? It's coming. Maybe. It
was there for a moment.
It was there. What did Grandpa own when? I love getting in Grandpa's business. Step 1, obtain all property deeds. And we're going to actually talk about that more in the next quick start. Step 2, total amounts bought and sold for land. We're talking about land here. Step 3, locate additional sales or inheritances. And step 4, map the properties, which is really the fun part. And step 5, fertilize, plant, and harvest. Fantastic. Thank you for that quick start. So let's do the next episode. 1 second. All right, welcome back to the county episode. I didn't realize how well the quick start that I chose dovetails into your quick start. Like, this stuff just happens. Like, you don't have to plan for it. So what is our next quick start, which is me? The special guest is here. Yay! Are you guys excited to see me? All right.
I'm very excited to see you, but I got to get going. So
oh yeah, bye. I'm
I'll let you and Michael bring this one home. So.
Asta, dude.
Good.
Thank you. So, Michael, thank you for joining me on my quick start. You are a county man, I can tell. So, today the quick start that I chose is, first I have to tell my 1-minute genealogy story. I don't know if I've told anybody my 1-minute genealogy story. And Michael, I don't know the last time you told yours either. But my 1-minute genealogy story, everyone knows. Does anyone know the person? Put it in the chat. The person who got me started in genealogy. I want to see if you guys have been listening to me for the past decade or so. Hello, Renata. So, I was blessed to have a genealogist in the family, and his name is my cousin Floyd. And so my cousin Floyd used to go down south, and he would to Georgia, and he would come back. He was on a hunt for tumor family, and he would come back with all these stories. And he came back with like these giant, Michael, remember when census records were like, bigger than 11 by 17? Like there were these giant sheets
Like
of paper.
36 by 36, yeah.
Yeah. So Michael, do you know why they were that big? Is that how big they are in the act when
I
they?
would assume the actual, I mean, they weren't 36 by 36. My assumption is the original books are like that size.
Okay.
Because it's
Okay.
like we mentioned various indexes of the courthouse. The courthouse where I'm from, the tract indexes are probably that size. They're almost probably 3 feet by 2.5 by 3 feet. They're very large. They're bigger than 11 by 17 for sure. So I'm
So
assuming some of these census books were
were big like that. So I'm
similar.
glad.
Yeah.
So yeah, I knew you would know. So I'm glad I brought that up. So he would come back, and he would also have these stories, of being, told to get off of plantations, with the gun had pointed at him. And just to see my ancestors on these documents from 1870 just really blew my mind. And when in 2003, the 1930 census came out. And at that time, we were still rolling microfilm. That's when we had good biceps and triceps, because we were rolling microfilm. And we got to go, the African American Genealogy Group, we got to go to the National Archives to see the microfilm in Philly before they were available to the general public. And on that day, I went from 1930 back to 1870. And nothing could be more hooked than that. So that's my 1 minute genealogy story. I hope it was in 1 minute. But today we are going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is collecting in the county. I love dealing with the county. Michael, do you have a favorite level? Do you like county records, federal records, town records? You have an area of records that
I
you man. Mhm.
I kind of like them all because they all can tell you different things. But usually, if we're talking about getting the county records, we're talking about going there. And so, for a lot of people, that's really going to the area where they lived. Federal records, you go to DC, or state records, or state capital. But when you're getting the county records and you're having to do on site research, you're going to pretty close to where they lived. And for some people, that's part of the whole experience, to go to close to where they live when you go to the county and research.
Yes, the county is lots of fun. Oh, my county story before I forget and we get started. First of all, let's everyone give my mom a hand clap. She is commenting. Like I know she watches the show, but mom, thank you for commenting. Nice to see you. All right. So I spent a lot of time in Barber County when I first started doing research, and I would peek everywhere, be nosy. If you go to the courthouse, peek in every corner that you can go, you see. Just if the door's ajar, but do not own the records. Like we don't own them. We don't have rights to see everything. And so I would just peek. I saw this door and I saw this really deep room. The books looked dusty, like people hadn't been in there. And I was like, that is my paradise in there. I need to get in there. So I went to the counter and I asked them if I could look in this room. And the lady said, oh, honey, sure, you can go in there. You ain't going to find that's real old. You ain't going to like that. So I went in and I found the oldest document that I had, and it was a mortgage record from 1865. It was the only record, like I had the 1870 census of my people, but this record listed wife. So that was the record that actually gave the relationship between that 1870 couple. And I said, and I came and I showed them, like, you're not supposed to tell them all your business, but I was like, oh my God, that was really great. And she said, oh, would you like to go to the basement? Genealogy heaven. Okay. Genealogy heaven. So that was me collecting in the county. So let's get going. Step one is to choose a person, place, or time. And for this one, I chose this lady here. Let's see how we can get it to come up. I chose this lady here. This is my think she's 4 times great grandmother, Florida Giles, and she was from Leon County, Florida. And you can see where I get my love of hats from, because this lady wore her hats. So choose one person or group of people in a specific place and time. We used to call that the crosshairs. We haven't done that in a while.
We haven't, no.
And then step 2 is, did the county change boundaries? Michael, how do you figure out whether they changed boundaries?
There's a Newberry Library has a website of county boundary changes where you can go. The exact address I can't remember off the top of my head, but looks like that's where you got that. So I led you right into that, but that is the place to do that. You want to keep in mind that, sometimes once boundaries are set, they stay fixed. Sometimes they change a lot. But when your people lived in an area that's been settled for a while, the boundaries don't change too much, but they can change, and you want to be aware of those potential changes. I know there was one of my ancestors that was in Kentucky. It was after things had been pretty well settled, and I couldn't find their records after a certain date. But what happened in, I think, 1830 or roughly or so, there had been an arbitrary straight line from one point to another that made this county boundary. And they decided to use a river instead, which made a lot more sense.
Yeah.
And it only changed maybe, a couple thousand acres, which wasn't that much of the county.
Yeah.
But it put my people in a different county. And that's why all the subsequent records after that point in time were in that county, because that's where the property was then located. So you want to be aware of those boundary changes.
And Michael, do you find that it's like when the county, like in New Jersey, 1844 was when this county was created out of another county, like it gave birth to this county. And do you find that they kind of cut it off, like it's like a hard cut, 1844, all the records, or would there be some blending still going on?
There's still going to be some, especially in frontier areas where, 1825 is the date the county was founded or started, but they didn't have a courthouse right away. They didn't have record offices right away. So for the first several years, maybe even longer, the parent county, it's just like today. You have to you just have the child. You can't just let them go. You got to take care of them for a while. So there might have been maybe a 5 or so year time period where the parent county is keeping some of the records. They may finally go to that new courthouse. They may not. It kind of depends on they should go to the new courthouse, but there may still be some in that original parent county.
All right. So for her, when I went here, because her years were 1856 till I think she was in Florida, in Leon County, at least till like 1900, a time period. And so based on this, you can use this thing on the left-hand side to choose the different years. And I'll get in close. You can zoom in. And once you choose the year, it'll give you, like, based on during this time period is when this particular jurisdictional area existed. And then I could go later in to see, does she kind of, like what Michael said, did the line kind of like jump over her? Like the people from Mexico say, I didn't immigrate, the line jumped over me. Sometimes the line can jump over your ancestor. And so this is just a great way to be able to see that. All right. So we check out those jurisdictional boundaries, and the Newberry, they go really crazy. You can go really deep into.
There's a lot of detail on that one. Yes.
I love that. And so step 3 would be then to locate county records on family search. This is where the magic happens, people. This is where the magic happens. Would you agree, Michael?
For the most part, yes. That's where you want to go and take a look and see what's there.
So first I would, they have the wiki. So I'm going to show you 2 things, the wiki and the catalog. And so the wiki, find your county and see what's available for your county. Like, where is the courthouse? If you were in Barber County, you would see there'd be 2 courthouses listed there. And then when are birth, death, marriage, court, land, when are these records available for your county? This is like the best place to be able to see that. And then you want to go to The best genealogical catalog in the world. Family Search Catalog, which is at familysearch.org. And I usually do a place search, Michael. For this one, we're definitely going to do that. Have you found luck with any of the other searches, surname, title, author, subject, or keywords?
Typically, if you're looking for county records, you're going to want to do exactly what you did. The surname, title, author, those would be if there's a book or something you're looking for, that would be the way to go with that. But a lot the county records that we're talking about, they're on microfilm or they're in digital format, but they're in books, but they're not like printed books like some of the other things we might utilize. So you're going to want to the place is going to be the way to start with that and to maximize the chance you find what's there if it's there.
Yep. And so you're going to I put in Leon County, Florida. And then this is where they'll take you. And this is a list of categories for each of the types of records, census records, which I don't understand why that's there, church records, court records, land and property records. And so if you were looking for the deeds that Michael and Jim were talking about, you would just expand that. But I was looking for vital records. And so my goal was to collect everything that I could on Florida and her descendants from the county. And so marriage records were important. And so I expanded this, and it shows applications for marriages. It shows a book. So the reason I put this as a great view, when you're looking at records, Michael, I generally try to go to the governmental records first and kind of like leave the books and stuff to the end. Would you agree?
I would agree. Not that the books aren't important, but it's kind of like you say. I generally tell people when we're looking for trying to find the county records, you want to look and see where the author is not a human.
Yeah.
But well, they are human, but you know what I mean. It's the title of the position or the record holder, their office. So just like you say, the government there, when it's in that case the county judge, you may see recorder, circuit clerk, whatever. Some record keeping official is the author. That's likely a county record, and you want to get if we want to get to the originals as best we can, those are the ones that you want to look at. The other ones are helpful later because there may be other indexes and finding aids that have been created. But for starters, you want to look at ones like you've got there in that light green color with the government.
Yes, definitely those governmental records, because the book and the author text could leave you out. I tell this story about the Barber County Marriages book. If you look that book up, you will notice, well, I'm just telling you that everyone is not listed there that are actually in the governmental records, because that author decided that if there was a C next to that person's name, she wasn't going to put them in her book. And so you might look at this author text and think, oh, this is all that's available for, but it's not. So, yeah.
And that's something they might not. A really conscientious author or whatever compiler who leaves things out, not that you should, but would indicate that in the preface. I have a suspicion that person did not indicate that in the preface. If I had to wager my bets.
Oh, wow. I think there might be some technical difficulties. All right. So you are locating the county records on familysearch.org. Let me see, did I have any? Oh, okay. So I think we went to that one. Okay, marriage licenses. And so, Michael, you are able to see me and to see.
Yes, I can. Yes, I
Okay,
can.
cool. So here are the county marriage records created by the government, and these red links will take you to the online records, and they should look like this. And so this little camera icon here lets you know that they are available online. And sometimes you might see a lock on them, which means you have to go to a, what are they called again? Family Search Affiliate Library.
Yeah.
And like the Genealogical Society of Pennsylvania is one, a lot of libraries are. So you could just search online if you ever see a lock next to the record.
Were you going to mention the magnifying glass?
Oh yeah, talk about the magnifying glass.
The magnifying glass means Family Search has made an index to those records. If you click on that, it pulls up a search box where you could search them, search their indexes to those records, and then hopefully it would take you to a digital image from which the index entry was made. If you want to browse them manually yourself, which I often like to do because indexes aren't perfect, and I find people browsing that I hadn't thought to look for, you could just hit the camera and you could do a browse. Maybe if she knows somebody got married in 1930 and she's afraid the names are written as a hot mess, nobody can read it, then what you would probably want to do is just go through the entries for 1930 one by one and hopefully discover the one that you're looking for there.
So Michael, is this search specific to this reel, or is it across
I
the
think
marriage?
so. I think
Okay.
when you hit it from this perspective, that's what it's going to search that reel of film. If you wanted
Okay.
to search all of the whatever that entry was, you would go to that previous page you were on where it had that red at the bottom and said there's an index or something, click here. That's where you would search the larger set of records. But these, I'm pretty certain the last time I used it, I mean, things always do change. It was just letting you search that roll of microfilm, which is if you've got, if you know the marriage took place in that one time period there. Why am I pointing at the screen? You can't see me doing this. You could search that. And as somebody's mentioned, there may be times where that index is not perfect. It might be
Yes,
incomplete or
yes.
whatever. So, if you know the year or the date or the month, I would view those images manually, um, just to make certain. You can
Let's
try
listen
the
to
index
Katie.
first.
Katie has
That
some eye-opening things. She said the magnifying glass also doesn't necessarily mean the entire film has been indexed either. Just some of it. It's always a good idea to browse. So use both. Try to index. Of course, try the easiest way, right, Katie and Michael? Try the easiest way. And then if you don't see it, don't automatically assume, Katie's saying, that it's not in there.
correct. That's a
And
good
I
point.
would also say a couple of things is that these things also overlap in years. Sometimes, like this one looks like it's kind of clean, 74, and it starts at 75, but sometimes their things overlap. And then the other thing is that the records might be separated. So you notice we have marriage license for blacks and marriage license for whites.
The other thing about marriage records is they are recorded in the order in which the returns are brought back for recording. So
Ah.
they're not in, we might think, well, I got married on Christmas in 1930, so I'm going to look on Christmas. They're going to be in that record by when they were recorded. If they got married on Christmas in 1930, if the preacher was a little bit slow because he had other things going on, because busy time at Christmas, maybe he had a few funerals or whatever along the way, he might not have gotten it returned until mid to late January, perhaps, or early February. So you just want to keep that in mind. Don't look on that date. If we're talking about these births and marriages are like that too, and deaths are like that too, they're recorded in the order in which they're brought to. Now, today that would be done really quickly, but we're not talking about today. We're often talking about 100 years ago or something, and things were a little bit different. Uh,
Most definitely. And I would say, like, for these, also realize to find the one that has the index. Look at the index first and then move, especially with deed, you want to look at the
mhm.
index first and then look at the full.
But even that's a good point. Even with those county vital records, there may be in the example you showed there. Those are probably volumes of certificates, I'm guessing. But if we
Yes.
get a little bit earlier, when it's like a record book with a transcription of the certificate, there may be an index in the very front of that, and those were often created by the clerk or someone in the clerk's office. And while they could make mistakes, they might be a little better because they knew the names of the individuals. They might did a little better job of transcribing it for the index, and maybe someone did 100 years later.
Most
Too.
definitely. Let's look at, and also, like, today, like, even though we're doing like browsing, it's important to kind of list what you're looking at. so that you know that you looked at this particular collection or this reel for these particular people. You want to keep track of that because you need it
You,
for your citation, of
you could
course.
really, what's really easy is to have a Word doc. There's other ways you could do too, but have a Word document open, swipe that, and
Yes.
copy it, paste it into a Word document, and then underneath that, tippity tippity type whatever you looked for and whatever you found. Make a note about that.
Yep. It's very simple, or you can get crazy like me
Oh,
and you
you
can
can,
create a
well,
spreadsheet.
that's a whole separate issue. But you can copy and paste into the spreadsheet. You can copy and paste into the spreadsheet too. Just real easy. Just you don't have to retype a lot of that stuff. Just make it as easy for yourself as possible.
And that's what I did. I just copied and paste, copied and paste, copied and paste. And then you can keep track of it because I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I can't do genealogy full time all the time. And so I have to keep track of where I am. So step 5, which was to create a list. I jumped over myself, create a list of records to search. So just so that we talked about the indexes, I want to show you this one more time. So not only did I have like a sheet that shows a list of the records that I was looking at, I have tabs that show that when I looked at the indexes, when I looked at the marriage records, I listed who I was looking for and whether or not I found them. So that when it was time for me to go to the actual marriage records or the deeds or whatever, death records, whatever I was looking at, court records, I could then go from the indexes and pull the actual marriage certificate, death record, court record. So you can use that all in one spreadsheet, or you can also, now I'm doing more so the way Michael talked about it, which is just to copy and paste it directly into a Word document, which is very easy.
The main thing is just make certain you do something that keeps track of what you've done, so you're not doing the same thing um, over and over again.
Over and over. And of course, step 6 is to then just do the research, pull the records, and then document. And the most important thing is don't let the fact that it's just so easy now, because when we had to travel and go there, I think we were a lot more diligent about writing down what we're looking at. Today, we just have to make the effort to copy and paste what we were
Because I
looking
think
at.
the assumption is if we need to go back, we can always go back and find it, and sometimes that's easier said than done.
Most definitely. And guess what? Like, I don't know where it went, but my steps are not here. And so let's go through the steps for this quick start. No, it's really crazy. Like, I look and make sure all these things are here, and this one is not here. But today, this quick start, collecting in the county. So step 1 is to choose a person, place, and time. Start with 1. Then step 2, did the county boundaries change? Step 3, locate the county records on Family Search. Step 5, create a list of records to search. And step 6, research and document. So that is it for researching in the county. It looks like I am degrading on my video. Michael, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being here. And Mom, thanks for being here. And everyone else, thank you as
Thank you.
well. Have a great time researching in the county. And hopefully they will invite you to the basement. Don't just go say, what do you got in the basement? Can I go? They're going to be suspicious. Just be cool about it. All right. Thank you.